So I
Okay.
am representing Mayor Hu. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Right. Okay. All right. And let's see. I believe with that, we are ready to get started. We have a quorum.
All right, thanks. I'm having problems with my video, so I'm going to leave it off here for a second. But we will go ahead and get started. Let me make sure I got my minutes up here. And my computer is being very slow today.
Yeah, mine too. I think we lost the chair.
Do you want me to get us going?
Yeah, if you're prepped, let's
Yeah.
do that.
Welcome everybody to the Washington County Coordinating Committee on Monday, December 15th at 12. Congratulations, you made it. Working over to public comments. Item number 1, if you're interested in providing a verbal public comment during the virtual meeting, you can write in. But do we have anyone in the audience today who would like to provide public comments?
And I'll note we didn't receive any requests in advance.
Okay. Great. So moving to item 2, introductions, roll call. Welcome. Do we have any alternates attending on behalf of their member today? We already did Council President Maureen Wolf for Tigard. Any others? All right. And then Stephen, can we get a roll call, please?
We can. And FYI, I see Chair Rosener's back too.
I am back.
Excellent. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Pace.
Of course.
All right, we'll go in alphabetical order by jurisdiction as usual. Mayor Kirk for Banks.
I'm here.
Thank you. Mayor Beatty for Beaverton.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Dalin for Cornelius.
Present, having audio video troubles. I'm going to reboot and be back.
Okay, thank you. Durham, Mayor Drake. Forest Grove, Mayor Wenzel.
Here.
Thank you. Let's see, Hillsborough, Mayor Pace.
Here.
Thank you. King City, Mayor Kazmersky. Don't see her. Okay. North Plains, Mayor Dumbro.
Present.
Is that official now?
Yes, sir.
Excellent.
Against my better judgment.
All right. Well, congratulations
Thank you, sir.
and welcome. For Sherwood, Mayor Rosener.
I'm here.
Thank you. For Tigard, we have Council President Wolf. Thank you. For Tualatin, Mayor Bubenik.
Present.
Thank you. City of Wilsonville, Mayor O'Neill.
Here.
Excellent. Thank you. And for Washington County, Commissioner Fye.
Present.
Thank you. And for our non-voting members, Councilor Rosenthal.
Present.
Excellent. Thank you. Stephanie Turner for ODOT. Thank you.
Here.
Great. Thanks. Dan Eisenbeis, Port of Portland.
Here.
Welcome, Dan. Thanks. And John Sarah, it looks like for TriMet.
Present. Thank you, Stephen.
Excellent. All right. That concludes the roll call. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Stephen. And I apologize for my technical difficulties. And thank you, Mayor Pace, for getting things going there. Anyways, we're on to item 3. We have one item under action items, and that's consideration of the WCCC meeting summary for the November 17th meeting. Everyone have a chance to review those. Are there any changes, or do I have a motion to approve?
I move
So-
to approve the meeting minutes for November 17th.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Aye. And any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Thank you.
Chair, should I abstain? I didn't know. Otherwise, I can approve on behalf of the mayor.
Is if you want to abstain, that's fine. Yeah, yes. I'm assuming that's because you weren't there in the last meeting. Yeah, awesome. Awesome. All right, we are on to item 4, information discussion section. And our first thing up is Metro Community Connectors Study Update. I think we have Allie from Metro with us to give us an update. Allie, are you there?
Yeah, give us just 1 second. We need to make sure to promote her.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay,
There's Allie.
there's Allie. All right.
Welcome, Allie. We're looking forward to an update.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here, so thank you for having me. I'm going to go ahead and just get started sharing my slides. And I know Stephen will wave frantically at me if I'm sharing the wrong screen, which he doesn't seem to be doing.
Looking good.
Thank you so much. And then I am going to go ahead and dive right in. I really appreciate, again, being here today. A couple things that today's update is. It truly is an update. I'll be asking for your feedback. It's a good chance to give feedback before we get to one of our major milestones around priorities that I'll be talking about a little bit later. Another reason for this update is we are going to JPACT because our schedule has slipped a little bit from what we talked about. So at that meeting, we wanted to provide just an update about where we're at and some information about when things will be coming back, since it's a little bit later than we talked about before. So hopefully that sets up what I'll be talking about today. Then I just wanted to give a quick reminder that this is an RTP, Regional Transportation Plan implementation project. The study is exploring recommendations for changes as part of the 2028 update, which, if you can believe it, is going to be starting just at the beginning of this next year, and also the implementing documents that we'll be working on updates for later on. Earlier in spring, our work on the updated policy framework, which you might remember from this graphic on the screen, that informed recommendations for the transit vision and also will inform future work on policy language considerations as part of that update, which are still to be developed. What we've been working on with the study is taking that framework and applying it to make recommendations for updates to the transit network map that's in the RTP and potentially generating ideas for the strategic project list as well. It's important for me to mention here that this study really is a visioning exercise to continue to think about the future we want. It's not a financially constrained plan, so it doesn't have the resources we need identified to be able to get to this future we want, but we do think it's important to keep visioning for how we want things to be rather than letting our current situation sort of dictate how we would like that future to look. So back in spring, we developed an approach for assessing potential locations and typologies for mobility hubs, where a lot of transit comes together and where we want to focus on making convenient connections, using a set of criteria based on these applicability and readiness factors. And so we then used that approach this summer to identify different levels of mobility hubs across the region based on the transit network and also local character. And that included intercity routes, which is something that we heard from the committees and also from JPACT's feedback. That has included work with agency partners on adjustments like reflecting the local hub that we were already seeing emerging at the Oregon City Shopping Center. And it informed how we identified connector service opportunity areas, which I'll speak to in a moment as well. And that has provided a layer that can feed into that transit network vision map from the RTP to inform future investment planning thinking about like another lens that we could apply for prioritizing active transportation improvements, for instance. And this is all towards making it easier for people to access and transfer between different types of transit and transportation options. We have also worked with local partners to develop a mobility hub toolkit, and that provides details on the different hub types. From where that we already have some existing hubs at light rail transit centers to new local hubs where buses and shuttles connect, either today or where we anticipate that happening in the future based on our plans. And it includes strategies for hubs where micromobility does not exist today, which is something that we heard as far as feedback from this committee. It then outlines the elements that should or could be found within each hub type across 5 main categories: transit service facilities, active transportation infrastructure, placemaking amenities, car and rideshare infrastructure, and also wayfinding and information for riders. And so what we're working on right now is actually taking this work to the next step with a companion implementation toolkit for staff that has guidance around design, operations and maintenance, funding and performance measuring considerations, and covers everything from a hub pilot phase to retrofits of existing transit centers to build out of new hubs. Back in spring, we also had developed an approach for identifying connector service opportunities using criteria based on 3 key questions: where there are needs and gaps in the region, where there are gap areas that are transit supportive, and then what other sources tell us about transit markets. And that helped us identify where there are areas with the potential to support shuttles in the region and other areas where there may be a mobility need, but where another first last mile solution like bike or car share would be more appropriate. And that might be because of the roadway network character isn't really the best for transit, not transit's best friend. Or the distance from transit might actually not be that much, and it might just be getting people just across that, 3/4 of a mile versus a half-mile distance. And we developed companion cut sheets that are part of the packet for these opportunities areas that detail the service that exists there today, the destinations that can be connected to, a possible solution of service type, and then the complexity that would exist to implement it. And then we also include some examples for some of those areas that where a first last mile solution would be a different option so that we could talk about how we arrived at that conclusion. And we worked with the transit working group to develop and add to this map and held a local workshop to discuss refinements to those cut sheet areas, recreating versions of the local workshop at the technical advisory committee meetings. And that's really to respond to what we heard from JPACT for more local staff involvement in this process. And our next step is continuing to work with partners to turn these circles into a blobby layer that can replace the community jobs connector areas on the RTP transit network vision map to inform future transit investment planning. We've also been developing a parks transit strategy. We looked specifically at what Metro Parks and Nature defines as regional destination sites, which offer something different than a local park, like hiking or water access. There are about 116 of these within and nearby the region, and about 40% are accessible by a 1-hour transit trip all week within a safe half-mile walk. About 28% don't meet all of those requirements, and 33% don't have the transit access. Something we wanted to think about as an equity consideration, especially as we know patterns of gentrification have pushed people outside of the central city, but that is where the best transit access to parks lies. So some parks with weak or no service have planned service and development, which is really exciting. There's some pilots that are in development for Washington Park and also out in the Troutdale area to Sandy River. which we've covered in the report. And then a few of them were near enough to those circles areas that I had brought up on the last slide, so that we included them as destinations there. But then the rest, we looked at an approach where there was a higher level of parks need and demand and a little bit less complexity to implement some sort of transit solution, especially where we could sort of leverage connecting to the existing network. And that resulted in the about 8 clusters of park service opportunity areas that you see here. The packet includes a profile for each cluster with the amenities within, the level of access priority by site, potential service options to explore in future work, and other considerations as well, just for serving parks, as well as some best practice approaches that we can use as examples. And we're not working on an approach to classify, or sorry, we're now working on an approach, excuse me, an approach to classify connector service and mobility hub opportunities. So this is a really great time to provide feedback for work that is coming. For those service connector areas, we're proposing to look at readiness by looking at whether need exists more today or in the future, equity impact, the market for transit, and what we've heard from engaging with community. And then for mobility hubs, a lot of those same factors, but we're actually looking at connectivity more, where we're seeing more of those transit modes connecting, and then also local priorities and planning support. And the outcome will be groupings where there are nearer versus longer term opportunities. We are planning to talk more about all of these opportunities with community this spring in February and March, and we are working, getting ready to work with community-based organizations to hold some events, looking at business forums, and then also following up with some Native community workshops again. And then in addition to what I mentioned today, we are also working on a governance strategy that will define the governance and funding challenges to expanding connector transit in our region, and then also look at best practice solutions for identifying potential strategies and metrics that we can apply moving forward. And then I would propose that this would all come back to the committees around the May timeframe. So with that, thank you so much, Chair. I am going to turn it back to you to facilitate discussion at this time.
All right, thank you, Allie. Appreciate the update. Looks like Mayor Kirk has a question.
Yes, just by chance, I noticed you have Stub Stewart and the Banks for Nonia Trail there. And I was wondering, did you guys know that prior to COVID, Columbia County, C.C. Ryder actually had a bus that went to Stub Stewart, and then it went to Willow Creek Transit Center. So I know they lost their funding and they haven't been able to reestablish it. So that might be an idea of maybe helping them out, which will also help you out. And also, I'd like to make sure that I'm in on that discussion when you guys are talking about the Banks for Nonia and Stub Stewart.
Thank you very much, Mayor. We did, that did come up in conversations, and that there is, we heard transit access at the, one of the edges of the park. So that came up in our discussion, and I will make sure that, too, that we have also reflected the prior shuttle service in our report, because that's very helpful. Thank you very much.
It's kind of like, why reinvent the wheel if they already have a concept? They actually went in, I think it was twice a day, into the Welcome Center. And that also used to be used as access when certain support parties would actually send people that were homeless out to the state park with their stuff.
All right. Thank you for that. John, TriMet, you got a question or a
Thank you,
comment?
Chair. And thanks, Allie. I really appreciate the great presentation today, and I appreciate you and Metro looking at a vision of the region that is not just constrained by where we're at today. That being said, I do just want to reiterate, TriMet does continue to have concerns about messaging this potential expansion to transit at the same time that we are messaging our budget situation and our needs to be cutting transit at the same time. I do continue to think that that's confusing for our riders and confusing for folks in this room. So I just do want to be clear that this is a Metro study trying to figure this out. TriMet has been engaged, but there is no current funding identified for any of these propositions. And TriMet continues to be undergoing the same budget scenario that we've already talked with you all about, and we'll be continuing to talk with you about. And we will still be moving forward with our cuts. So just want to be clear about TriMet's current situation in relation to this. So thank you all.
Thank you, John. That is really important and to provide context. And I would just also add that for this phase of the project, we are not planning on doing a broad push publicly outreach-wise, because that there's a lot of nuance in what John just explained, and it's really hard to explain that to the public without it. Within our community events with community-based organizations, we have opportunity to do a presentation and provide all of the context in the way that respect that it deserves. Through like a website or social media blast, that's really hard to do. And so we're going to be focusing more on events where we can give all of that context in the way that it really needs to be shared. So just for this group to know, you might not see us be doing some of the blasting we normally do for that reason.
If I could just add to that, I think, John, I understand the budgetary constraints, and I understand the nuance in the messaging, but it's also incredibly important that we're doing the long-term planning. We're identifying those long-term projects. So when the grant funds are available, when maybe we have a new administration at the federal level and there's another infrastructure bill, that we're ready to go after those dollars. So I think this is incredibly important work. And just one more quick question, and I see then I'll come to you, Stephen. So when you do the outreach, you mentioned CBOs. We bring this up every time. Let's make sure that we're getting out to all the different cities, especially the edge cities, and talking to the folks out there, especially as you move into the live work aspect of the transit needs, because that's where I see a lot of transit deserts on our side of the county when it comes to live work. So just a comment. So you've heard it before. It's nothing new. Anyway, Stephen, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just listening to some of the comments, and I think this is really it's really helpful context. And I think as the legislative session comes back around in 2027, hopefully we'll all be able to continue championing the need for ongoing transit funding, stable transit funding, would be super helpful. And then I was just going to say, I think a couple of as I'm looking at the opportunity areas map, which was, it looks like maybe slide 7, just noting that the W2 area shown in the Bethany area. So we've just recently launched the Bethany Link shuttle. So we are doing some work already in that area, trying to help provide some of those kind of missing link services. And then sort of in that W1 area that's identified, Southwest Beaverton, that's where we're just about to launch our microtransit pilot that we talked about last month. So we're making some good progress on some of these initiatives already. So I think that's important to remember too, that some of these things are maybe already in various stages of development right now too.
And Mary Dalin, I saw your hand pop up momentarily. Did you have a question?
No, I got my audio video fixed, and I was just trying to get back into the meeting fully. Thank you.
Oh, gotcha. No problem. All right. Any other questions? Well, hearing none, we'll go ahead and move on. Thank you, Allie, so much for the update. We look forward to tracking this and having you come back. I think you said probably in May. Awesome.
Yes, thank you.
All right. We will go ahead and move on to our next item B, Washington County Resilient Transportation Funding Options Project Update. And we got Stephen and Jessica here to present on that.
Great, thank you. So I think I'd like to just launch us into with a little bit of context, and then Jessica is actually going to run through the presentation. So the presentation that we're sharing with you is exactly the presentation that we just shared with our board a week ago, or on Tuesday the 9th, just giving them a status update on the status of this project. And then there's a companion project called the General Revenue Options Project. So we're basically running these two sort of separate projects concurrently, using the same consultant, presenting the findings all in one combined set of information. So you'll see a lot of references to both our TFO, which is the transportation focused work, and GRO, General Revenue Options. And I was thinking about this too. I hope that this is work that cities will also find useful. I think we're really taking a pretty deliberative approach at trying to consider a variety of different funding mechanisms that would help support just basic county and operations, but a lot of these will be applicable to cities as well. And then as we're thinking about transportation funding, there are some things that we'll look at, such as like a vehicle registration fee or the countywide gas tax, where those are revenues that are shared between the county and the cities. And so there are some potential moves that the county might make that would also have financial benefit to our city partners as well. So we just want to make sure that we're keeping you abreast as we're going through this process and looking at what our next steps look like, and then really thinking about how this may hopefully have a useful life even after we get done with this particular project. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Jessica.
All right, thanks. I think I've got share going here.
Looks good.
Okay. So as Stephen said, this is the presentation that was sent to the board, and it is by our consultant team, Marina and Company. So general overview of the two projects, and I know you've seen this before, so it's just a recap. The General Revenue Options Project goal is to improve the resiliency of the county general fund by researching and proposing potential new revenue sources for board consideration. And then similarly, Resilient Transportation Funding Options goal is similar, except it's focused on transportation capital project funding and to help reduce the reliance on the county general fund by having long-term sustainable funding for transportation capital projects. So the draft work plan we are nearing the end of. We kicked this off a year ago and developed a project management plan. Then in phase 2, we did an informal funding survey. We sent that out to all of you or your staff as our partners. Our team compiled the funding options glossary, and we compiled a wide range of funding options. I think we brought that back to you in the spring. And then we established evaluation metrics to review the options. So over the summer, the team evaluated the alternative funding options against the evaluation metrics. We held some board briefings to talk about those, and the options that moved to the front, which we'll go over in just a minute, are the ones that move forward into this more refined implementation viability analysis, which is where we are now. Next phase, final phase, is board direction on funding strategy. So first, there was a wide range of potential revenue options, and I'm sure all of you are familiar with this, dealing with your own budgets, but these run the gamut from taxes on goods and services, taxes on income, taxes on property, and then fees and charges. And we are using many of these already. Next phase was the evaluation criteria. As I mentioned, we had two categories of evaluation criteria: functional criteria, focused on performance, alignment with our goals, and fairness. And then feasibility criteria focused on legality of a revenue option, administrative burden considerations on how implementation would be done and how much that would take. And then political support will be the final evaluation metric that won't be done until the board approves funding strategy. So this cool matrix shows the initial evaluation results of the funding options against those evaluation metrics for feasibility and functionality. So it's a little difficult because there are so many funding options, but there are a bunch of dots in green, and then there are a bunch of dots in yellow, and all of those options move forward into implementation viability analysis, along with the enterprise zones is in orange. We're going to go over that in a minute. And then the ones that are in red, we did not move forward at this time. And feel free to ask questions during the presentation if you'd like, and I'll rely on Stephen to help flag those.
One quick question.
Yeah.
Is tolls in orange or red?
It moved to the red after
Okay.
looking at the analysis. Yeah, it was on the bubble, but it's really not a realistic one from administrative burden and political standpoints at this time.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to phase 4, the implementation viability analysis. This diagram just sort of shows how we're moving through the process, the wide range of options, the evaluation criteria, and then we're here where we're narrowing the revenue options. So the part of this analysis really focused on answering questions about the revenue tools. What is the process for implementation? Would the revenue tool require changes to existing procedures? Would it require a public vote? What is the administrative burden of a revenue option? Is the revenue potential worth the administrative overhead? And are there limitations to implementing the option at the county level? Which some of you at the city level have additional options that we don't really have at the county level. So as I said, the analysis was completed for the revenue options in green. And part of this was that we realized this is a big bite of work to undertake. And so first we decided to focus on the ones in green, and then we're going to focus on the ones in yellow a little bit more after that. So this is from our consultant team. This caution, this is for informational purposes only. This is our first brush of all this detailed information. Okay, so in the packet, the WCCC packet, we linked to our board packet, which included a table, the big table, which has all these columns. And I'm going to talk about here how to interpret that table. So if you have it open or you want to open it later, this is just a little explainer. So first, it talks about the actual service, the indicator of revenue potential, the level of certainty of the modeling. The estimated revenue potential is useful. So in this example, you can see the gas tax is on the top line there, and where 1 cent per gallon increase would raise approximately $770,000 total annually. The net increase to the county is 40% of that. So some of these options are scalable. So if we're thinking about a 1 cent, or you could think about 5 cents, and you could do that math and figure it out. There's a column for whether it impacts property tax compression, and then a column on future variability. And so again, with gas tax, we know that that's one that will continue to shrink even if we increase it. So just to keep that in mind when you're looking at future revenue. The table continues on the functional side, and it summarizes necessary steps to implement a revenue option, whether it requires a public vote or not, any other statutory or other constraints on the option, and then looking at the administrative burden of the option. Now here we're showing a reference column. That is not included in the board packet, but we do have that information available. So here we're just showing an example. This example is vehicle registration fees. The revenue potential is for the county is estimated at medium, which if we go back, we can see that that's 1 to 5 million. So a $5 increase of vehicle registration fee would raise approximately 1.6 million. And the net increase to the county is 60% of that. And then the rest goes to the cities. So this is one, and many of these are and would be in partnership with the cities. Especially because of this revenue sharing. So the limitation is, it sort of depends on what the level of increase anticipated would be. Does not have an impact on property tax compression. And then the future outlook for this, of course, is variable. It depends on how many people are buying and registering cars. The process for implementing vehicle registration fee increase is pretty simple. It's determining what the fee increase would be, coordinating with partners, drafting an ordinance, and then updating all of our intergovernmental agreements and revenue sharing agreements and things like that. Does not require a public vote. There is a limitation by statute, the 40% of revenue distribution, and then that the local registration fees cannot exceed the total of the state registration fees. And it has a low administrative overhead burden. So this is a pretty good looking one that we'll continue to look at a little closer. So as I said, implementation analysis will continue for yellow and orange categories. And I'll talk about that a little bit more when I talk about strategy. So next steps are to determine and start to develop the strategies. And that's looking at the political considerations about things like constituent awareness of the need for new fees, the confidence that revenue options will help address shortfalls, any unintended consequences, looking at financial and service considerations, such as, does a revenue option actually solve for the service we need it to? The amount of rate or increase needed to meet a shortfall, and then the implementation considerations, such as impact to ongoing administrative processes, operations costs, and then any impact to existing agreements. So the next steps are sort of where we are, and we just did this presentation to the board last week. So our first step is to focus on shorter term, higher impact funding options. So the first strategy is going to be the shorter term strategies. We're going to focus on evaluating our short term funding options with higher levels of certainty, and we're going to bring those back to the board on January 27th. Then we're going to focus on mid and long-term funding options that are sort of longer to develop, longer to implement, and maybe are more complicated. And we'll put together a strategy for those mid and long-term funding options and bring that back to the board in the spring. And of course, we'll come to the WCCC as well and keep you informed. So the requested feedback that we asked the board, and we will ask you as well, do you support the next steps and recommended approach for developing strategy recommendations? Is there additional direction or considerations you think our project team should consider? And do you have other questions or need more information about anything? And I think that's the end of my presentation. So I will stop there. I can keep sharing if that's useful, or I can bring it down, whatever you prefer, Chair.
Well, let's see where the questions go. Thank you, Jessica. Okay. Appreciate the update. It looks like our first question is from Mayor Dumbrow. Did I pronounce that right?
Dumbrow, but that's okay. I'm used to it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, Jessica. So number one question I have is, considering the pushback that the governor got on her proposal, a lot of these things are aligned. What is our exposure? And I mean, I guess, how do we anticipate messaging this to the voters when we're likely to face a referendum on the current state level? Have we thought this through? And I'm just curious to get feedback, because I'm going to have to go talk to my city about this, to be honest.
Yeah, I might jump in. I think that kind of falls into that political considerations. That's sort of that last filter that will be applied sort of through the board lens. And I think we're very sensitive to the notion that obviously it was very successful, the initiative referendum to put the recent state transportation revenues on the ballot. So we're definitely mindful of that implication. And I think this gets back to the idea that we would really need to do a good job of trying to make sure that we've built a case with our communities to try to help them understand the need and the benefits that would accrue from asking them to pay additional fees. So I think really needing to get ahead of that rather than sort of jumping in and adopting an ordinance and then sort of waiting for the result of that. So it would definitely need to be a proactive campaign to build awareness. And I think Jessica maybe alluded to it. I forgot which slide it was, but really trying to make sure that we've done our homework to make sure that people understand the need for the funding and then the potential benefits of the funding.
And I would just add to that, Mayor, that at least on the transportation funding option side, we're trying to support MSTIP, which has been used successfully throughout the county and in every city. So I think that's a little, like, the messaging is at least relevant on that this is supporting. So in North Plains, for example, it's supporting the Glencoe West Union project. And so we can kind of point to that MSTIP successes and investment, I think, as part of the success story of MSTIP. And part of what we're trying to do is that we have seen continued general fund reductions to MSTIP. So we're really trying to be proactive and keeping that fully funded.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mayor Dalin.
Maybe some similar trail to where Mayor Dumbro's gone on it. I think part of it we need to demonstrate before we get too far down this aisle is what efficiency or effectivity have we had with using this money already? A lot of the bang that's going on with ODOT and the state is not being effective or efficient with the money they've already given. The latest posts show the massive budget increases that the state has received over the last, 5-6 years, and they're crying a river when they've had 50%, 100% increases in the income. So I think we need to be sensitive to any money we ask for. One, two, what have we done with the money we've already been getting? So if we're looking at the 1 cent gas tax, what is being done with it already? And what more could we do if we had 2 cents? And Aaron and I met Friday and talked about this. If you can't explain it with a couple little plastic cars and maybe army men, you probably can't. You can't make the connection to the public. It needs to be an easy message to deliver. So I think before we ask for more registration money, which I just registered my car last week for another couple $100, and the numbers from our communities are telling us they can't come up with a money for a $400 emergency, and we're hitting them for over $200 to register their car. We need to be very clear on what we're doing to be efficient and effective with the money we already are getting, and how could we continue to be as efficient or more efficient if we got more money from the general public. So I think those would be a couple of my concerns as we head down this path, and then looking at the scenarios, right? But Jessica, you obviously use the tip money as an example, and I think what continued to get that renewed on the several votes before it became part of the tax base was a demonstrated history of doing good work across the county with it. So I think that's got to be a part of the buildup on this. If we think we're going to try to come forward with something, we need to show what good we've done with it already. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I couldn't agree more. Mayor O'Neill.
Ditto to everything that everybody else has said. Wilsonville is geographically in a unique spot. We have a sliver in Washington County. There is no benefit to the residents and small businesses and a lot to lose. And I think this is a perfect flag that there's a broader discussion about re-examining statewide revenue, how we raise it and all that. So I think I know the political support comes at the end, but I can safely tell you, you'll have no political support from Wilsonville. So anyway.
Thank you, Mayor. Are there any other questions? Councilor Wolf.
Thank you, Chair. I was just curious, and I know I'm kind of new, just jumping in on the strategies in the green box, if you will. A lot of us leverage those tools in our local communities quite a bit, whether it's TIF, TLT, levies, operating levies, et cetera. Is there ever any concern of confusion in all those pieces, or this is a strategy because we need transportation dollars, and I just don't want to cannibalize the tools that are working locally to then impact as we try to go regionally? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think again, this is sort of that combination of general revenue options with transportation. So they're all kind of mixed in here. And some of these funding sources would not really be applicable for transportation purposes, but more for general revenue purposes. And I think, again, being mindful of the potential benefits and potential negatives or drawbacks to our city partners would be a key element of moving forward with any of these options. So I think before you saw anything that would appear on a ballot, there will be a lot of discussion that will need to happen between the county and city partners before we move forward.
That's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And just to add on to that, I appreciate your comment, Stephen, about the continued dialogue with the cities. I think it's really important, if it is something that's going to go to the ballot, that those conversations happen early. Part of the challenge we got into with the library funding is the conversations where we got down to the nitty-gritty about what that looked like to happen too late. So those conversations happen to have very early, so we can build consensus with the cities. And where the cities have a fee component, you talked about partnering on some of the fees. Keep in mind, like in my charter, I can't implement a new fee without a vote, any fee without a vote. So different cities are going to have different rules around that.
Mm-hmm.
Mayor Bubenik.
Stephen and Jessica, what is the anticipated timeline if you were to go on the ballot? You mentioned about the short term, 1 to 3 years, longer term. Because we just mentioned the library levy, you just did the public safety levy. There's talk of you're going to need money for the jail or a new jail or expansion of the jail. I'm just on the political side, voter fatigue. The Washington County is asking for money over and over and over again. And in the event that there's a jail levy and this on the same timeline, same period of time, folks might just had enough. So what's the timeline, in terms of 1 to 3 years, more than that, and when the jail thing might come on the ballot?
Yeah, those are questions that are beyond my pay grade, Mayor. I can't really answer that. But again, I think that gets back to the political considerations component of this. There are a lot of measures in play, as you said, recent and upcoming. And we know that one of our folks here at the county tries to keep tabs on all of the different city measures that are going to be coming up, so that we're trying to be mindful that we're not sort of piling on too much all at one time. But I think your comments, both yours and others, are really indicative of the need for a real serious discussion at the state about revenue reform. And so again, I hope there will be some momentum legislatively to step back and take another look at that, because I feel like, just as one example, Washington County, because when Measure 50 implementation happened, we were very fast growing and our tax rate was very low. And we just sort of got frozen in amber at that time under a condition where rapid increases in assessed valuation were allowing us to have relatively low rates under the old system. And we just got locked in at that rate, and it just simply doesn't work any longer. And so I think there's got to be some sort of meaningful revenue reforms that would relieve some of the pressure on all the local agencies. And again, of course, we all have to be mindful of those impacts on our community members that we know, some of whom are struggling too. So no easy answers, but I would just say I think I can assure you that the county is quite aware of the need to as I say, coordinate with the cities on these, and then sort of being mindful about the timing and sequencing.
Any other questions? I'll just throw maybe not a question, but an ask on the options where you're looking at levies. Is the analysis including where we are at on the 10-cent cap for city government, city and county? Because there is a cap. You can only combined, all of us can only get to that 10 cents. And I'm just curious if we're looking at where we're at on that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually the $10 per thousand of real market value.
Yep.
Yeah, so I don't have details on that. I do know as a county, we have started to see some compression loss at the county level. And so it's been relatively minor to date, but I think it will continue to get higher and higher. And I can't remember right off the top of my head right now, but I feel like local option levies are often the first to be reduced when you reach that compression cap. And so it gets quite complicated. And these are all sort of property by property calculations that you have to do. It isn't really, you can't just do a simple assessment of an entire jurisdiction. It really goes literally property by property. And each property is unique because of what their circumstances were back in 1997 in some ways when Measure 50 took effect. And so we're still dealing with these pretty wild inequities between even similarly situated properties, sometimes can have wildly different taxing outcomes under the current system too.
Yeah, and I point that out because as you approach those caps, a new levy in Washington County can actually impact funding for a city levy. And so we need to be really careful about that and partner on these things. Mayor Dalin.
I was just going to chime in. Yeah, I think we need to be wise of the Gresham experience, right? Multnomah County voted in a library district like ours, and it severely hit Gresham's police and fire due to compression. And then the other one I'd question is, I don't know if Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue is still maintaining. They built that model that goes property by property and could do the analysis. I don't know if they still have that and are maintaining that, but we'd used it in the past when we looked at some things out on the west side. And it was very valuable to understand that you could put things into that model and see how much of the properties would fall into compression. So you'd understand your yield because they were using it for their purposes as they went out for levies and stuff. So they may be a partner we need to talk to.
Great. Thank you.
They do know how to analyze data. No question about it. Awesome. Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Stephen. Any other questions? Well, seeing none. Jessica, Stephen, thanks again for the presentation. We will go ahead and move on to, where are we at here? Item C. We're going to have a quick discussion of a potential January in-person meeting, which for those of you that were here last year, we try to do one of those a year. Prior to COVID, we did them in person every single time. Remember those days. Mayor Pace and I met with staff and we were talking about this a little bit, so we wanted to get the input from this group. But we're looking at maybe having a potential January 12th in-person meeting. Mayor Pace was kind enough to offer to host the in-person meeting at the Hillsborough Civic Center. And then, Jessica, was this your idea? Which I think is a wonderful idea of not just have the meeting, but then have, for lack of a better term, some no-host social time after the meeting at a local, I think we were thinking about doing it at the Backwoods Brewing Company after the meeting. Gives time for people to socialize, get to know each other a little bit more, and maybe even have a little fun. I enjoy a beer every once in a while, so that's all I had to hear, but I thought I'd open it up to the room. Mayor Pace, did you have any comments?
I just wanted to say we'd be happy to host. Would love to have everybody come out. And the Backwoods Brewery is great food, and they have both alcoholic and non-alcoholic options, so everyone's included.
An inclusive drink menu. That's amazing.
Yeah. And we put a memo in the packet too, just to prompt a few ideas. And I'll back up too a little bit. One of the things that we have done, we did this last year, and I thought hopefully some members found it was quite helpful, was kind of the WCCC 101. We have new members that have cycled on even since then. So we thought it might be useful for the new members to kind of go back through a little bit of the history and the why we do these meetings and why it's important. And then that could also help facilitate some dialogue between the more seasoned folks and the folks that are new to the committee as well. And then something that I wanted to offer up that we didn't put in the memo was potentially inviting alternates to join as well, just so that both the member and the alternate have the benefit of hearing that background info, and potentially if we do have an after meeting social, give those folks an opportunity to get to meet others as well. And then the other option, one thing that we talked about was if rather than maybe holding our normal meeting time, particularly if we had the idea of doing the social, was maybe start the meeting later in the afternoon and then convening directly into a social hour after hours. So we looked at potentially maybe a 3 to 4:30 p.m. meeting time with a 4:30 to 5:30 social hour. And then we also are interested in maybe thinking about other dates if that might work better. And I believe Mayor Pace, we're still just working with the city to try to confirm room availability to make sure that we can work out a workable date and time.
Yeah,
so
as soon as we land on a date, we can work, Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So January 26th is another date that we had taken a look at as well, although that would be after the JPACT meeting next month.
Mayor Beatty, did you still want the karaoke option?
I'm just going to say on the late January one, I'll be traveling that day for the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and I would imagine other mayors would be as well. So that would not be an option for me to attend that.
Okay, great information. Thank you.
But karaoke only drinks are provided.
Mayor Dalin.
I'll give you the same feedback I gave JPAC. Wow, January, really? The month that we might actually have bad weather. Maybe better if we move it off January or February. That's the occasions that we do actually have weather. So I'd be thinking maybe more in a March would be the start of it. So we just have warm rain instead of maybe ice or snow. So my 2 cents on that. Thank you. And then the afternoon thing. Yeah, if we go to a later in the Monday afternoon, that would be, I think, depending on it, that'd probably be a better idea rather than doing it during a regular meeting time. Thanks.
Mayor Bubenik.
Second and fourth Mondays are our council meetings, so we couldn't attend.
Right.
Any other thoughts or ideas?
I have a question, a follow-up on the idea of moving this in-person meeting out to March. Could we potentially just get a show of hands on everyone who would support that? We could send out a doodle poll on a couple of date ideas, including our regular March date and maybe the third Monday, fourth Monday, that sort of thing, first Monday, and see what works in March.
I mean, I think Mayor Dalin brings up a good point, so I'd be in favor of that. Just show of hands. Is everyone okay with the March? I think there's a consensus there.
Well, thanks for bringing that up. That was not on our radar to think about bad weather.
With our luck, there'd be an ice storm that day.
Yeah, the flip to that is March isn't any, walk in the park either. So, if we move to April or May, then we could go on the rooftop bar. The other cool thing about Backwoods Brewery is that it does have a roof. And so if there's bad weather, we can go inside and then the roof protects us, and they also have heat. And so just thought I'd let you all know that that's an option as well.
That's really good information. And now that I think about it for March, that's also, I don't know about the rest of the
NLC.
NLCs, and I
Yeah.
make additional trips back to DC for lobbying that month. So April might be a better month.
Yeah. So for me, it'd be January or April. You know,
I just keep hearing the song. Let's just call the whole thing off.
yeah. Or we just come out and meet in January. You know, it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
park under the Civic Center. You can walk over to the backwoods. You know, you don't have to get back in your car to do the happy hour. It's right there near the Civic Center. Makes it really easy. And maybe, you know, in the doldrums of winter, it's good to get together.
Right. And easy transit access.
Yeah, very easy transit access. Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
All right. Well, it
Could
sounds
we
like
ask for a quick show of hands on who would be available if we just kept our regular January meeting date but moved it to late afternoon?
I have North Lanes has council first and third Monday, so that later is going to be a challenge because I'll have work sessions all month.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Appreciate that.
awesome. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to our regional committee updates discussion. Mayor Dalin and Commissioner Phi, do we have a JPACT update?
Yeah, give me a second here to get my screen reorganized. I'd maximize to get away from the agenda. Basically, information discussion. Surprise, the Community Connectors Transit Study, Opportunities and Tools. That's going to get to see that again. And going to have a Safe Streets for All. Boy, there's a huge bummer in the Safe Streets for All. We basically hit a low in the number of fatalities at just about 80 back in 2013. And basically, we're back up to almost double, almost double again. So up in the
So sorry.
130s, 140s. It's just, you'd think with the technology and everything else, but there's a lot of distracted drivers and other stuff. So there'll be discussion around that Safe Streets for All, really, this stuff's going on there. And then what can we do to try to improve stuff in our area? And then there'll be an update on the Sunrise Corridor project from Clackamas County. And that's it. So it's kind of a light agenda for December. Commissioner Phi, staff, any other updates on that?
Nope, you covered it very well.
All right, thank you. And then the next one is MPAC. Mayor Dalin was kind enough to cover for me in the last meeting. Mayor, do you have any updates from that meeting? I listened to the tapes. You did an amazing job. Thank you.
I think I used the large spoon and stirred the pot heavily. But that's not unusual for me if you just let me talk from my perspective and Cornelius's perspective. So I think we're all talking about the same kind of things. Everybody's challenged for revenue right now. Everybody, city, county, metro, everybody's looking at, is there opportunities to go out and generate more revenue? And I think everybody then has the same questions on, is it justified? Are we being efficient and effective with what we're already using? So that's you're seeing that theme come up over and over again as everybody's tight on money right now. So I think we cheer anytime we hear somebody come up with some effectivities. And I want to actually say yay to Mayor Rosener for bringing up the stuff about the contracting stuff for the metropolitan mayors. I think there's some untapped opportunities there, and I look forward to talking to my staff and hopefully everybody else does too about opportunities and leveraging contracting to be more efficient and effective across the area. So that's what I got.
Awesome. Thank you, Mayor, and thanks for the plug on the regional procurement initiative that MMC's going to get a study group together on. Would love to have the counties involved with that at some point. And if any of you are not aware what we're talking about, feel free to give me a call and I can get you up to date on that. All right. Let's see. Going to the agenda here. Next is R1 Act, Mayor Bubenik or Mayor Wenzel.
Is Melinda still here? I don't see her. On the R1 Act, the subject of discussion was ODOT's capital improvement plan. They pretty much have their marching orders with their CIP for the next 5 years, and that's primarily to complete the HB 2017 projects that are still feasible. What was more controversial is years 5 through 10, is that they're looking for each one of the acts to come up with 3 projects that they can support that can be proposed for that act for years 5 through 10. What the frustration is that supposedly each act has to get this done within 2 months with minimal staff support from ODOT. So you can imagine the difficulty in picking 3 projects for Region 1 when we, basically spread from Hood River to the coast. And picking those 3 projects can be very difficult. So there's a little bit of bitterness, if you will, with ODOT on this. We'll try to get it done, but not a lot of time to get it done in. And they came out with a matrix that this is something that could have been presented before and given more time, but we just got it. So that's what we'll be working on the next 3 months to get these 3 priorities to ODOT for years 5 through 10 of the next CIP. And that's it for me.
Righty, thank you. And Mayor Kirk, anything from the Northwest Act?
Well, we had the same dog and pony show about the CIP, of course. The multiple pages. Yeah, we just had it last Thursday and taking my pontoon truck to Seaside, so that was exciting. They are some of the updates that Region 1 had is some of the projects that they're going to be doing in 26. There are a few they don't show any on Highway 26 itself, at least within Washington County. If you are going to the beach, there is an extra new hump, but they have it well lighted, and make sure you do the 25, if not less, because my phone flew when I did 25. Along Highway 6, the one thing that is going to be within Washington County is they're going to be doing a $1.8 million roadside barrier upgrade, because apparently the current guardrails we have are outdated. I don't know, maybe the wrong aluminum or something like that. So that's going to be starting pretty soon. That was supposed to start in 23, but it's going to be starting soon. And then they also have different paving projects off and on in 26, but most of those are going to be outside. Also, they're also talking about how to get funding for Highway 6, and especially the problems we have on Highway 6, basically within our jurisdiction, from Browns Camp, which is our county line, east. Also, not totally Northwest Act related. Bank City Council did get an update from our contractor about the possibility of landscaping and ornamental wooden sculptures in the middle of the roundabout that's going to be at Highway 6 and Arnst Road, where you used to be able to go into the golf course. And so we're going to be getting that to ODOT. Probably a good chance we're not going to be going for the ornamental logs and stuff on a concrete barrier in the middle of the highway, so some drunk or semi can take it out and then sue us. So especially Sherwood, I was told, you were told by Stacy and those guys not to be doing stuff like that. So that's probably what we're going to be telling our contractor on a state highway. Otherwise, that's it for Northwest Act.
All righty, thank you. Appreciate that. That takes us to other business and agency updates. Does anyone have any updates or things they want to share? Or for that matter, if you have some future agenda item topics that you would like to get out there, now's your time to let us know.
Chair, just on future agenda topics, I wanted to note that we'll be bringing back, we didn't get it on the future agenda topics list in time, but we're looking to bring back the ODOT CIP project prioritization, I believe in February. Jessica, is that correct?
Yes, in February. And I also wanted to let you know that I am working with Clackamas County, with Jamie Stasny over there. We both attended our WINAC as well. And we are going to work in collaboration to try and have maybe a few extra meetings and invite our WINAC members and staff to discuss the projects and potential prioritization in advance of the February meeting.
Yeah.
And then we're going to bring the topic here to the WCCC.
Yeah. And I'd be remiss not to carry the message from Ryan Wensheimer that I think this is all just happening in a context of very constrained funding and a long, long list of priorities. And so I think Ryan's been doing a good job trying to help manage expectations around that as well.
Awesome. Anything else for the good of the order?
Oh, Councilor Rosenthal's got his hand up.
Oh, yeah, Councilor Rosenthal, sorry.
Yeah, just a couple things and then one question. Well, a couple things that you all know, I'm sure that tomorrow there's going to be a vote on the resolution sort of to reestablish a committee for the support of housing services. So I'm sure you're all aware, and you're probably all aware, most of you are aware of my position on that, but I will not be in attendance. Secondly, as you all know, many of the cities and counties have had to allocate special funding to support various families, immigrant groups that have, because of the, shall we say, the federal changes in some of the laws and supports, a lot of cities and Metro have allocated funding. On Thursday, there will be a vote on a framework for moving forward so that we have some policies in place on how to support communities if there are other changes that threaten the stabilities of communities. So that's going forward. Finally, you probably know that Metro, some of the councils, not myself, sent in a letter and got OTC to approve a fifth plan for the Albina district, the Rose Quarter improvements, which is basically to spend the money they have and keep moving forward to trying to find other funds and continue with phasing. So that, which was a substantial change from what ODOT was looking at. But the question I have is, considering the governor has come out and is developing an economic development work plan, and since I almost never get WCCC agendas in advance, I'm just wondering if this WC3 is going to have any sessions devoted to just discussion economic developments for Washington County, which, as we all know, is one of the economic drivers of the state.
Well, thank you for that. I'll just chime in real quick, and Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong. I think under the WCCC bylaws or charters, that's not a topic area for WCCC. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But
yeah, it's really focused on land use and transportation topics. I think one could argue there's a little bit of a economic development nexus there, but as it relates back to land use and transportation, I would say.
That being said, however, I do think it would be worthwhile for the mayors in the county and our economic development teams to be collaborating on this issue, especially as the governor's working on a plan. I know, Beach, you're out in front on some of this stuff right now. Appreciate that, but I do think finding a forum or mechanism for us to collaborate on that would be a good thing. Mayor Dalin.
Not that we need an answer today, but I know TriMet is still working through their process, and as their representative spoke of, looking at maybe particular substantial reductions. I'm not sure when the next time is that they would be coming through to talk with us. and kind of show what the progress is. I know you showed us a great roadmap with lots of dates and all that, but it kind of escaped me when the timeline's for. So maybe an ongoing 5 or 10 minute update on that would be appropriate, and then a bigger when there's a right time for us to have a discussion.
It looks like John has his hands up. He's going to solve all our problems right now.
Oh boy, you got me pegged, Chair. Yeah, thanks for the ping, Mayor Dalin. We'll be happy to come back in the new year. We're working with the TAC already to try and figure out a time that's most appropriate for us to come back to the TAC in this committee meeting to make sure that you're all looped in. And I'm also happy to give regular updates to you all in these meetings as well, if that's a format that you'd like. And anyone is free to reach out to me anytime, and I'm happy to have one-on-one conversations with you or help schedule something bigger. Now that I'm thinking about it, Chair Rosener, I know that you had requested something like that in our recent MMC meeting, and I'll make sure that I'm reaching out to you today to set that up.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Anything else for the good of the order?
Mayor Rosener, really quickly, I was just thinking about back to the economic development topic. So the county does convene the Economic Development Managers Roundtable. So the staff members are meeting, I want to say at least quarterly, if not more frequently, maybe every other month. And so I think that'll definitely be a good topic. And then I took your comment to also mean maybe some forums for elected officials to engage as well.
Yeah, especially now is this is all of a sudden on the governor's radar, so how can we tune and inform that effort, for lack of a better phrase? I saw you smiling there, Jeff.
She's been in favor of a lot of taxes for a long time, so it's a very interesting development.
Yes.
We talked about the TriMet thing. We're talking about development. On the land use and development, I'm not sure when's the right time for us to start talking again about. I don't think we'll do anything in the short session, but nothing will happen in the long session if we don't proceed with some kind of plans about what we want on land use, updates, changes. And then I think also, Rosenthal mentioned the formation of supportive housing services. And I think my feedback on that is more mayors, less metro, and that would be good. Obviously a multi-jurisdictional, I think we need counties, we need cities, large and small on that. And that would be my recommendation, because it's great that you guys are generating this and they're the host of this. And I obviously understand that you have a responsibility to be financially cogent and just generally responsible for the money. But I think these are the folks that are the boots on the ground, right? That between the counties and the cities are really delivering these services. And I think for you to have a committee made primarily of those folks would be very helpful. That'd be my 2 cents. Thank you.
Councilor Rosenthal.
Yeah, if I might just add, well, first of all, we had a briefing today. Yes, we do expect land use issues as being discussed are going to come up. They may come up peripherally in the short session, probably not too much, but they will come up in the longer session. And because everybody has been talking about changes to the land use law as one of the ways of making, shall we say, industrial land more available and ready. And I just have to comment on Mayor Delane's comment. Yes, more cities, less metro, but I lost that battle in the council session.
When you say you lost that battle, is that we will have city representation? What's your read on that?
Well, there will be city representation, but not as strong as I would think it should be. And there will be metro representation stronger than I think it needs to be. And there was just a straw poll taken basically, and most of the council came down pretty squarely on the side of what is proposed as a structure, which is very similar to the JPACT structure.
And is that the one that had one city per county?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anything else for the good of the order? All right, with that, looks like we get a little bit of our time back today. Thank you, everybody. Happy holidays. and we'll see you next year.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.